They'll all expect us later.
So, did you finish the greased up one?
I thought I'd halt it, and I've got the bits I could make it work, but I thought I'll buy motors with longer wire rather than soldering on some wire onto old motors, and just do it properly. So I've slowed myself down a bit, but almost there.
We can hear ourselves. Someone's slipped up. Do we know who that is?
It's you. It's all your fault.
I'm just double checking. I haven't got the speakers on as well on this rig, but it seems clean.
Yeah, ain't me.
Check. I can't hear anyone, which probably means it's me. But
it might be me.
There's a little bit of whistling and pulsing, isn't there?
Yeah.
It does sound like there's someone's smoke alarm going off.
Yeah.
Very far away.
Or like, when you get a motherboard with like the
someone outside
the errors.
Yeah.
Maybe someone in the street.
It's either that or a lost model alarm.
Fucking car alarm.
Yes. That's it. Stephen's like lost a model and hasn't realised it.
See, that's the great thing with some of those lost model alarms, where there's a delay. The battery backed up ones, there's a delay between you kind of turning and unplugging the main battery and them going off. And it always seems to be the bit where I've just closed the boot, and where's that noise coming from? And it's like, lost model alarm.
Or open TX. The idle alert. Yeah. What? Who's talking? You're not talking.
Yeah, I had that. I was driving with Tony in my car, and all I heard was like several GoPros go off. I was like, oh no! There's like hours of footage of me and Tony dicking around. Right, it is. We're still not there yet. We still got less than a minute.
Let me just go to the traditional blue rather than trying to blind everyone.
Oh yeah, I didn't notice.
There we are.
There we go. The LDO blue. You should have got the hex for that from Frank. Right, let's start the show. Hello and welcome. You're listening to Let's Drone Out. Tonight we are joined by everyone's favourite curry kitten.
Hello.
Couldn't he land a plane and he didn't break the one prop he had?
I did have the other props in the bag. I then found out after I put it away, but it worked.
But it's not a video unless you ratchet up the tension, though, is it?
I was on the edge of my seat. Tonight's special guest, Painless360.
Hello, good evening.
I had to explain that Painless was the name of the gun from the Predator, and then explain Predator and versus Alien is a different film, and then I had to explain where the pill come from and everything. I had a long chat the other day about that. And shiny video stuff. Stephen is here.
Hello. Sounds like Painless may have got a rather extended Wikipedia entry by now.
Well, that's very nice of you to say that. It's just the weather.
Someone's in good humour tonight. Looking forward to this.
Yep. And I am Bright Until I Fly, and I am okay. I'm in a bit of pain, but the procedure went well. And
good stuff, Jack.
So many people now know what my insides look like. Lot of hello Painlesses in the chat.
Hello,
How
everybody.
have you been?
You know
Questions
what?
for Painless, please.
I was looking at when I was last on the show, and it was about the 2nd of September last year. It was a couple of days before we went to the... There was a show we all... No, it was the one up here, the one in the Midlands.
Western.
It was Western Park.
Where I inappropriately touched Andy RC. Sorry, Andy.
To be fair, anytime you touch somebody, it's inappropriate, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a whole thing I'm not getting involved in, but yeah.
I know.
What's Painless been up to then? What's been going through your world recently?
Well, we were just talking about before we came on the pre-show about the last week and a half. The big thing has been SSD drives and changing over to my new main computer. So the reason that I was so desperate to get in and do the pre-show stuff, so thank you to Jack for just letting me jump on here, is that this is literally the first ever kind of streaming thing on a new rig. So this machine's been in place about a week, and it's a nice modern system with SSD drives and all the big fancy graphics cards and stuff for the video editing. And my old one was 8 years old, so it'd been upgraded several times. But you get to the point where the motherboard is just,
it's had it.
You're putting lipstick on a pig, and then I can't do this anymore. And then this one hopefully is going to keep me going. Anyway, long story short, this has an SSD and it goes like stink. So I thought, oh, okay. My friend had put an SSD in one of his laptops, so I got an SSD and put it in my laptop. And then my wife happened to see it and went, oh, my machine's running a bit slow. So this afternoon, I put an SSD, and so everything in the house is SSD. So at the moment, not a huge amount of radio control stuff, but all the computers in the house are now SSD drived and have extra memory. And if any of you are listening to this and you're running on a PC that you've had for a little while and it's running like a pig and it always sounds like it's on the spin cycle of a washing machine, and you ask it to do something and you have to wait and you go and get another cup of coffee, get yourself an SSD drive. It's dead simple to do. It's probably 3 or 4 hours, and most of that is just sat watching a little bar move across the screen as it copies the files over. Put the SSD in, you will never look back.
And it's pretty much the most affordable upgrade you can do right now, because the prices on CPUs have shot up, prices on memory are picking up again, prices on graphics cards have been insane for several years, but SSDs are pennies now, aren't they? I was for about 90
Steve, I was really surprised because I went on there and got, because they're all 2 terabytes I've been putting in here. But last time I looked at SSDs, it was kind of, mortgage your house territory. And it's like 130, 150 quid for a 2 terabyte. And that's easily enough for a boot drive. It's a Samsung, it's the 870s. So they're not bad drives.
That's
so anyway,
a nice performer for those who aren't following the numbers game.
Yeah, it just makes such a difference. But the interesting thing is, it did make me think of the hobby, because I was one of those people that I kind of knew I needed an SSD because the old machine was running like a pig, and it's a case of, do you continue to put money into that old machine knowing you're running out of road, or do you make the jump? And my friend, as I said, put an SSD into one of his computers and came and just said to me, oh my God, it's transformed it. And I was like, has it really? And then one of my other friends did it. He didn't do it. He gave it to a PC shop and they swapped it over and he got it back and he went, wow, it's like it's amazing. And I thought, okay, maybe this is something I need to look at. And it kind of made me think of all those instances in the hobby where we have our own little things that we like, and somebody else over here has something else that they like and they rave about. And because we haven't experienced it, we kind of dismiss it as well, you've got your thing and I've got my thing over here and I'm happy with my thing.
Digital.
Yeah. And then you go over there and you try it and you go, oh my Lord, this is amazing. Why didn't nobody tell me? And
I don't like seeing things.
Yeah. Well, that is one of the problems with DJI, though, isn't it? That once you do try it and you do the HD thing, when you go back to analog, it is kind of like, oh God, it feels like there's a little smudge on it. It spoils analog a little bit.
Yeah, I did the SSD upgrade for my mum over Christmas. Moved her from the spinning disc, the clickery clattery one. Yeah, she doesn't complain about anything, but then it's like, oh wow, isn't it fast?
Yeah. Well, my wife's big PC, when she bought it, she only wanted to do Office on it, so we didn't need a massive high performance drive, lots of memory. And then she's got into all of this maker stuff, so she's got vinyl cutters and printers and all kinds of more machines than I've got, and that's saying something. So dealing with big graphics files, she'd loads of graphics files. She was saying it would take, I would be able to have a shower and make a cup of coffee in the time it took to load the image, literally. And she just tried it now after me doing it this afternoon, and it's 3 seconds and it was on the screen.
And you don't need to worry about disk defrags as well. On carrying on down this brave tangent that we forged, Caroline Tyler, RC. If you've got an SSD, you don't need to do the whole painful disk defrag, which you might remember if you were a Windows 95 user back in the day. Because defrags are only required if you want to make all the data contiguous. And SSDs are quite happy just to pick data out from all over the drive. It doesn't have to be in a nice, neat pattern. So no more defrags.
It's that legacy of us having disks and tracks and sectors on a physical spinning medium, and we don't have that on this SSD.
It's not like an LP anymore.
No, a running check disk to make sure the disk that I was about to was very good, because check disk was something I first ran at the end of the 80s, and it was kind of like, oh, this is I remember this. It's really good. So apart from that, to answer your question, Steve, most of it has been the kind of stuff behind me. See, we're into that thing where the cameras are all around again. Yeah. Where planes and quads and stuff. And I was saying to Curry before we came on, the problem is that whenever the weather is really good, you don't seem to get anything in that needs to be flown for review or for testing. And then as soon as the weather turns, stuff starts turning up. So my poor dining table is covered in planes as well. So and what it means is that the first half. I was about to say,
it looks remarkably neat in there. It doesn't look like a man who's obsessed with building planes at all. It looks like you've properly tidied the place.
Well, no, what you can't see is each side. And what I've done is carefully, very, if I moved it. Yeah, absolutely. It's like a hoarder's house. There's like towers each side of me.
I like the way that anyone who's a Patreon of Lee's. I love how he tests his rig on our show, so that if there's any fuck ups, it's on here, and his Patreon. Nice. Sorry, I've been dying to get that little dig in.
Hey, yeah, well, it's this. I was pretty confident of it. That's why I wanted to be hit early, brother, just to double check. Ever the professional, but
CDs behind you as well, I believe.
CDs. Oh, geez, wrong thing again.
Yeah.
Yes, old CDs. I do love this. It's one of the last bits of media that I haven't chucked out. Everything else is pretty much gone, including most of the DVDs and things these days.
Yeah, Curry's got a right hard drive on for physical media, and
I like
printing
physical media
and printing controller holders.
Oh yeah,
this is true. You put your controllers up; they're all there. But yeah, if you're a gamer and you like your history, then you're in all sorts of troubles from sort of now on, because everything's pretty much digital. Like anybody that's playing Xbox now is just on Game Pass, and everything comes down digitally. So the old days of collecting cartridges and DVDs and CDs is sort of gone, but we still need them because there's history in them.
We do, and it is. And I remember going and buying full-size albums, and you actually had artwork, and you also had the lyrics and things inside. Yeah, it was all that. History. Oh my lord, what is that?
The largest PDB you've ever seen.
Yeah, this is like just full on. Do you remember these ZMRs?
Technology?
Oh, the ZMR 250s.
Yeah.
Can you tilt the camera? Does it let you?
I used the bracket, so yeah.
Oh my word!
Look at that!
It's like you're living in the future.
HS 1177.
Woohoo!
You bought a vintage camera.
Yeah. The only thing is does anyone, if you're listening to this, does anyone have? I'm having a little micro min. You remember those micro min OSDs?
Yeah.
I'm having a little bit of an issue. I've had to reflow chips onto this one. I got to straighten the chip out.
What?
It keeps cooking them. There's something wrong. Someone has put a pin somewhere to where that OSD that they shouldn't have. And
haven't we come such a long way?
Yeah.
I'm going to say
3 of us have come a long way, Lee. One of us is right back where he started. I'm happy with it.
I managed to find
Emax 2205. Is that?
No, these are the Race Star ones. Do you remember those?
Oh yeah.
These are before, so this is post Cobra, but not Red.
I feel this is too late now.
Well, the early material while they were still cool.
You're using two modern motors.
I can't get any old shit motors. I'm trying.
Do you want me to break out the DT750s?
We need something that's got
just over there.
No one. They won't fit on here.
Let me have a look in the spares bin because I never throw any motors away, and
and we need shitty old ESCs as well.
Right, I could probably sort you out with both of those.
One shot 125, baby.
35 quid F7 ESC.
Bosh.
40 quid. 40 amp 128k BL Heli 32 ESC. Cheap.
Yeah, but he's lubed that frame up, the sick man.
Oh yeah, baby. I even played it sweet music.
Can we play that video? Do I dare download it? I can't do it because it's in the Let's Drone Out chat.
I can play it if you deeply want to. I mean, it'll demonetize us, but it's not like we make any money, is it?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Sunny Sky Motors and Simon K.
Yeah, I got the whole family. I've got my AOS 3.5, which flew precisely twice before it let out the magic smoke and took a nosedive.
Was that a LDO? No. Yeah, it was.
No.
Well overdue.
No, that's quite recent.
Okay.
I think I just had a short on the capacitor leads. And then when I crashed my giant, stupid Talist machine rip-off from Banggood, I bought the AOS 7 as well, because I was just curious about it. It's got these funny two-piece arms. Like, if you can see that. The arm is actually... It's 2 bits, and they fit together like a jigsaw, which is quite neat.
That is funky.
Yeah, and there's a little plate to lock them together.
Nice Beta Flight shirt, by the way. I've only just noticed it. How cool is that?
Yeah. Well, give them a bit of cash. They've got a Patreon as well. I don't think that hardly anyone realizes this because there's only about 20 people on the Beta Flight Patreon, I think. But yeah, they've got a Patreon. Bung them a couple of quid.
Nope.
I see Andrew Hyams is definitely trying to get in there with all the old school stuff. He's just listing out all the stuff that we used to use back in the day.
Don't make me. No, I'm going to have to visit the shelf now, Lee.
It looks like one of them didn't really sort out their carbon, though, because I've literally just cut myself on one of those frames.
Ow.
I don't know which one it was, but it's sharp. Ow.
27 megahertz. I think Tony still runs on that. It's no fun if he's not here to personally abuse. Hey Siri,
wasn't it 72 megahertz? Oh my.
So my quad build for this year will be featuring the classic KK board.
Oh my lord!
Just to see how we did it in the olden days.
What's the
vertical gyro?
To use one of these
baby.
Guys.
Oh, gyro.
Yeah, and don't forget, as I keep saying, these little. See those little flathead screwdriver things? That's how you adjust your gains.
That's gains, man. Gains. Old school gains. No PIDs on that, baby. There's a screwdriver.
OSD? What's that? I have to get a separate one and install it. Because you can't integrate it. It's
Mr. Carson's lab, isn't it, really? He has literally got tubes, and he's got that plastic screwdriver, and he's got floating ground so he doesn't barbecue himself.
It's quite sharp. I'm bleeding quite appreciably now.
Do you need to get a plaster?
Go get a plaster.
I may have to go do that.
Lee, did you just pull
I would
stuff
not
out
recommend CNC Madness because that's like a ninja's weapon.
No, you own one of those plastic adjuster pot things so that you don't fry it. Well, they got a name. I can't remember what they're called.
Plastic
11
screwdriver?
finger.
No, but they used to come with them, didn't they? Some of them. You had the little plastic, because it was high tech back in the day. But yeah, like I said, we've come a long way, which is good. So, what have you been flying, Curry? Anything exciting?
No, I just put out a video where I was flying a plane on an ELRS PWM receiver to see how that would work, and that worked pretty well, apart from my throwing's a bit lacking. I put it in the ground a couple of times, but it was all right. Then
I enjoyed that video.
Oh, thank you. Then I flew my OpenHD quad, and that was going quite nicely after we sorted out some of the issues. But then I got a little bit flip-flappy happy, which is a mistake on a quad where I've literally got a great big printed piece to mount a Raspberry Pi Zero, and it has a big piece of cable. And I think it's like, yeah, I did a little roll, and then I was like, let's do a fast flip. And then if you're upside down and your video completely freezes, and you're like, is the video going to come back? And by that time, you're already in the ground anyway. And I think what had happened is, in that time, the little bit of spare ribbon cable I had, putting things together, had come out slightly. The prop had hit it. This had pulled the Pi forward, smashed it into the side and bent some pins, and then the next prop hit the connector on the camera thing, and so that sort of exploded. So I got it back and looked at it, and fortunately the quite expensive camera and Wi-Fi adapter were okay, but I forgot to check where the GPS was, and that wasn't there when I took everything back. I don't know if you've ever done like, I've got everything, let's go, and then you 200 yards away you suddenly say, the GPS isn't here, and you just look over this field of grass and say, well, it was about there-ish. Yeah, so I couldn't find that, and unfortunately that's broken the Pi Zero. I plugged the Pi Zero in to see if it was okay. It looks okay, and it basically it's now like an iron. It heats up to like 1,000 degrees. It's like, I better unplug that, and no lights come on, which is not a problem. GPSs are cheap, and you can buy a Pi Zero for under £5, but that would mean there actually has to be any Pi Zeros in stock anywhere in the entire world, which there aren't.
Oh God!
Which is a bit of a pain.
If anyone has got a Pi Zero and they send it to Curry, I will send you a Raspberry Pi 3.
Take it as the opportunity to upgrade to one of those Pi Zero 2Ws or 2s, where they've got a quad-core CPU instead of a single-core.
I don't want to run the 2 on it yet because it needs a different build for OpenHD. Tailspin's saying that's why you need angle mode as a chicken switch. I had angle mode. I had rescue mode as well. But when you're upside down, not that high up, and then the video goes, you don't have enough time to consider things because you've already. By the time your brain said, "I need to do something," there's a distant explosion going on somewhere in the.
You're like, wait a minute, should I? Thud.
Yeah. What somebody should make is like a little kind of fold-out flag, a little red flag, and that you can take it to you when you find what's left of it. Stick the flag in the ground, because I do the same thing. I always get back, even though I think I've got everything. Even if you step 5-6 steps away and you realise that one of the canopies is missing, or part of the your run cam's disappeared, or whatever it is, you turn around and you have just no idea where you were. I definitely think, we should all just have like a flag, like they do in those crime dramas where where they're finding.
Every time you find something, put a little flag and then draw a chalk line round your quad. It's like the dead body.
The spray marker stuff.
What I always think I should have done is like pack up all my stuff, put it in the bag, and then walk to where the quad is. But what I always do is leave all my crap like in disarray on the floor, walk to the quad, pick up the remains of the quad, walk back to my bag, and then go, oh, it's missing a bit. Where did this land? And it's like way over there, and you can't remember where it is.
Yeah.
No.
I have vague hope though. That the vague hope is that field, that area. There's some Roman ruins around it, and so. That there's always metal detectors going on, doing their thing and digging stuff up. And if they find anything modern, they give it back to my brother-in-law who owns the farm because they think it might have fallen off his tractor or something. So there's a possibility. We cross our fingers. But yeah, I doubt they're going to find a brand new Pi Zero which works. That's the problem. I need one of those to get flying again.
Do you know what one of my favourite things was? I don't know. It was some sort of like UK. It had like a little evil devil in it. It was like Balls of Steel, I think it was called, and the little devil was on a beach with it. Like there was metal detector people, and he'd buried a Hydrojet cutout word that just said "twat." In the sand, so they're metal detecting, and then they'll come across it, dig it up, and then they lift it up, and it says "twat." And it's one of my favourite things in the world.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of things in fields thanks to the radio control flyers in this country that they'll get in 1,000 years' time. They'll be thinking, "What the heck was what? Yeah, what was this bit of technology doing out in the middle of nowhere?"
I know.
Yeah, these Romans were very advanced with these GPSs.
Well, what would we?
Yeah, they'll look back in 1,000 years and be like, we think the previous generation left these cameras in fields as some sort of offerings to gods. Looking.
primitive tools. These animals.
Yeah, Numbskull, I will be paying for the chamfered edges. Yeah. Next time.
You've learned.
The thing is, we've all done it. We've all done it. I mean, the thing is, it's horrible being cut, but the worst one is where it's actually a splinter that cuts you, and then you have to then try and pull that sucker out as well and hope it was clean. It's horrible, Stephen, when you catch yourself on that.
No worries.
It's why those frames that are nicely finished cost an extra $5 because somebody sat there with a bit of memory.
It was only $3. I'm an idiot. I was like, chamfered? Nah. The one you get from Banggood, though, because this one's from CNC Madness, the 7-inch. The 5-inch is from Banggood, who Chris got to produce that, and they do it a bit cheaper. It's cut by iFlight. Comes in an iFlight box, and comes with chamfered edges and all the fittings and the 3D printed parts and straps and everything, just like it's a Pucker B&F style frame, you know. It's pretty neat. Anyhow, sorry. Talking about multi-rotors. Enough of that. Meh.
Richard Warwick has given us. I don't know whether you guys. I've seen this because you know we're friends of Menace, old Menace RC. But
yeah, I saw that.
The old. We can play this in the background, but yeah, it looks like
they managed a nice 4-up with some HD 0.
Yeah,
getting all that running first time. No real hiccups, which was good.
I know.
I've had a long chat with Greg about this. It was really interesting because this is a venue apparently was a pig because the whole outside of this stadium is a hotel which is full of free Wi-Fi and everything else. So they tried to run analog for this race. The analog system wouldn't work at all. So then they fired up the SharkBite HD 0 stuff, and it works reasonably well. But the interesting thing is, Greg rang me after this and said, "I'm trying to get hold of a SharkBite system, and I can't find one for love nor money. Can I borrow yours? Because I want to look at developing something, improving it." The way they had it, it was just you probably saw if you haven't seen it on Instagram. They had like a big whiteboard with about 5 or 6 SharkBites stuck on it with all the antennas facing forward. But interestingly, SharkBite was one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about, and because it's been out 2.5 years now. I was quite a big proponent of it when it first came out. It's like, brilliant, we've got DJI, we've got something else. I just wonder what everyone's thought was about SharkBite and whether or not anything, what your impression of it is, because I'm still kind of waiting for it to break through.
I've got a SharkBite model, this little 3-inch. We had Pavel on the show last week, and he was talking about the fact that they've added iNav support for it now, so you're now able to have the OSD on your fixed wing. Obviously, you could have just run it blind and not had OSD, but you've got OSD support. It's nice. The HD 0 cameras, which I've got here, are a cut above the others. I flew someone else's setup before getting this and let him fly my DJI. And he had a bunch of different cameras, and there is a vast difference in the different cameras. Some of them are really quite rough, like sky purple. The grass is kind of weirdly emerald neon green. Yeah. So the HD 0 cameras are a great upgrade for that system, I think. But it's not DJI. It's not got the clarity. It's not got the range. But, if you really want to do long range and your antenna game is good, then you could go longer because you can break past that 13-kilometer artificial boundary. So maybe if you're doing a lot of long-range fixed wing and you're in a country where that's legal, then HD 0 makes a lot of sense. And I've seen some beautiful mountain surfing starting to appear using that, which looks wonderful.
I think it's interesting that we're still on the same module, and to seeing that photo that Jack's just put up. It's still the same module that they brought out 2 and a bit years ago when the system was first released. It just I thought by now we'd have been on version, like the DJI stuff, we'd have been on version 2. That module, the antennas on it, I don't think are particularly sensitive. It's quite a clunky unit in my humble opinion. I thought would have been, getting into this. Fat Shark might have brought out some goggles with it integrated, or I'm excited to do more stuff with HD0 with it. Assuming I get it back when Greg's finished with it, because I think you're right, Steve. I think HD0 are probably more excited about the system than Fat Shark seem to be at the moment, because I just don't hear anything from
Fat Shark have officially dropped it, which is the weird politics of the whole thing. After launching those Scout goggles and owning the release of, as was Sharkbite, they've lost all interest in Sharkbite, and now they're just moving back away from it to do only goggles. And I've seen reports, people saying, "Oh yeah, the Scout goggles are considered pre-release; they were never officially released. You've got beta goggles. We're not supporting any of the now Sharkbite products, that now HD0 products that were Sharkbite." They're trying to distance themselves from it, which is a strange maneuver. But I would really hope that we would, by now, have seen something in the same form factor as a rapid fire, as TVS Fusion.
Module.
And if they have to add a few pins to do HDMI out, then so be it, Maybe you could have a socket where you run the cable around the outside of the goggles, but Fat Shark can release a new set of goggles where they just put the HDMI plug into the module bay. There's plenty of space in there. We're not short of space to add an extra socket in there. But there's just no interest. And I think it's not going to be Fat Shark that drives it because of that. It's going to be people like Orca. It's going to be people like Skyzone who are actually pushing things forward. And we're going to see Fat Shark go, me too, and follow them.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it changed when Fat Shark sold themselves to, was it Red? Well, not Red Cat.
Red Cat.
Yeah. That's for me, as somebody that used to work very closely with Fat Shark, that's when it fundamentally changed and the whole energy changed. And I think they have a very different set of priorities, because let's face it, Fat Shark haven't brought out any new goggles for ages. And it just seems to be very weird. And there's obviously a plan, right? There must be a plan, because you wouldn't spend that much money on something like Fat Shark and then just, well, actually, some people would, to destroy the competition. But, you wouldn't expect them to just dry it out. But I think you're right, Steve. I think it's going to be, the guys behind HD0. It's going to be other people who are going to run with it now, and have the benefit of that kind of open source collaborative effort. And it just, it's just such a shame, because I remember when Sharkbite, well, back then it was called Bite Frost, if you remember that, it was supposed to be out at the same time as the DJI stuff. I think DJI got a whiff of what was going on and pulled the trigger, and it came out. I was actually in Florida in that August, 2.5 years ago, must be. I had a video on it, and I had an email from Greg at Fat Shark that basically went, "Don't release it. Don't release it. I've seen the DJI system. We are going back to the drawing board. The DJI system is so much better in terms of the visuals that I don't want to release it now. I'm going to go. We're kind of going to go back, and we're going to add the secret sauce." And I was like, okay, that's kind of annoyed me, because I'd set the video up so it would be a big thing while I was on holiday. But it's like, okay, that's fine. Your call. And then here I am 2.5 years later.
£184. What?
Yeah, so that there was a promo where those were 50% off, and that's where a bunch of other people snagged them. And now, not so compelling. And to what Painless was saying, I think they missed a trick there, because if they had just put it out there would have been people on analog who didn't want DJI who would have bought into it. But as it is, the extra time they spent cooking it, I don't think really changed the product too much.
No, I don't think. I think for me, the issue's always been about the VTXs. They've always been quite big, quite clunky. They were very hot.
They're hot.
If we think DJI HD, the air units run a bit warm. Try one of the Sharkbite things, because
even at 25 milliwatts, Sharkbite is putting out a lot of heat. Just doing the video conversion, getting the signal from the camera, and getting it into the format it needs to put over the air. That is taking a lot of power, and they really do pick up a bunch of heat, to the point where you worry if you leave them unattended. Because I'm also hearing people saying you get some sparkles on them that don't necessarily go away if you let them get too hot.
So the other thing I found, Wayne, the other thing I found very quickly was that the cameras, the early cameras in particular on that system, emitted some harmonics in exactly the right range to upset your GPS. and because I put it on a 9.5 quad because I'm a freak, and kind of went back and went when I turn the camera on, my GPS won't lock, and they went,
oh dear,
what? And they said, well, there's nothing on the system that should be going about the 1.2, 1.5 gigahertz. It shouldn't affect it at all. I said, try it, and they went, oh yeah. So then it was kind of like, how do you shield for that? It'll be a harmonic of one of the. It felt very much like and I don't mind some of the early stuff. I mean, lots of things that we get in the hobby. The version 1 feels like a test, doesn't it? Let's be honest. Look at the Peanut, some of the thumb camera stuff that's going on at the moment with GyroFlow. But the early adopters, the people who buy it, we get it in, we play with it, and then the version 2 and 3 comes out, or it gets fixed in firmware. I don't have, that's the kind of trajectory that happens a lot.
That's what you'd expect, right?
Yeah, but here we're 2.5 years later. At this point, I'd be expecting, like you said, a module with a little HDMI cable that drops down the bottom that you plug in, that can be powered, that has very small VTXs that fit on whoops, because that was the idea in the early days. Because at the moment, the HD system from DJI, the smallest unit, the people have skeletonized it and put it on whoop, the larger whoops, but it's not really designed for that. I think they just missed a bit of a trick.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is from Carl Zhao, and I'm just grabbing. After I spoke to Sync FPV, I got myself a yellow pen. So that's about as small as I can get DJI. I know Rabbit Ambulance is one user who's really shrunk him down, but I think that one of the reasons for the limited availability, if you look at the cameras in particular, when the cameras came out, these HD0 ones, which were vastly improved image quality, they were coming out in such small quantities that they were effectively doing time-limited release. Every day there would be 100 cameras for sale. And if you look kind of what's going on there, that was Carl Zhao, the founder of HD0, self-funding a production run, and he only had enough cash, enough capital to do however many 100 or 1,000 cameras were in that run. That's why it wasn't on general sale. So I think a lot of what we're seeing is one man's vision. He really wants to make it happen, but he doesn't have a massive contract. He doesn't have a massive retail presence. And so what we're seeing is this drip feed where you're like, okay, who would love this? Well, racers would love it because it plays nicely. And you can use 8 channels or however many channels you normally would with analog on digital. Okay, so let's push it into racers. Let's do the 20mm race VTX. Who else wants it? Right, there's some freestyle pilots who want something that's not DJI. Right, let's cater to them. And product by product, they're slowly trying to grow it. But there's no massive cash injection. There's none of that red cat dollar, which would have happened if Fat Shark had actually made it go.
Yeah.
And so
that's what we all hoped for, wasn't it, Steve? When it was bought by those guys, and that's the way it was kind of positioned, that all this money was going to pour in, and we were thinking, brilliant, it's going to, can be accelerated through to a sophisticated product, and it's like, oh, Andrew Hines making an interesting point in the chat, talking about that what we need is a video equivalent of the ELRS system, and whether or not HD0 or OpenHD are going to be there, the answers to it. I think. Wayne, what's your view on that? Because you've been playing with, is it OpenHD you've been playing with?
Well, yeah, we've discussed it several times. It's like OpenHD is an interesting prospect, but it's not particularly user-friendly. There are various hurdles to get over in terms of how easy it is to set up, because at the moment you're putting a Raspberry Pi in, which it's not the easiest thing to fit in. It can be done, and you can get very good results, and I think the distance record is something like 100 kilometers or something ridiculous like that. But it's not like DJI. Here's your air unit, here's your goggles, you're off and going. So I was going to say, what do we know about the Orca system? Because haven't they got like 2 digital systems they're going to launch, and plus they're trying to make their goggles friendly to all. So it works with HD0. You can plug in HDMI directly and record from it even, because that's even good for OpenHD. It's like, oh, I get rid of my ground recording if I can just plug HDMI in and record. So is that yet another system that might be something?
Yeah, and we see a lot of these people, and I think this is the Red Cat link as well. With Orca, they're definitely courting non-hobbyists. The hobby market is not that big. It's not 2015. There's not, we don't have Pepsi Cola queuing up to put advertising around drones. But what you do have are government contracts. And a lot of these Orca and Red Cat seem to be courting government contract, get the federal dollars, because typically the contracts are incredibly lucrative. They're effectively open-ended. You can just ratchet up the costs. You don't have to try too hard. There's a reason people say it's good enough for government work. You just need to get the contract locked down, and you can, not really try too much after that point. And I think maybe we're losing out on those markets because it's so easy. If you can produce a video inspection system or a video security system, not necessarily defense systems, but there's plenty of aspects in large countries like the USA where you can sell into those federal markets and you can make a decent amount of cash so long as you are the one that gets that contract. And without many players in the space, Red Cat and others stand to stitch that up and make a lot of money. And it might be 5 years before that trickles down to us on the hobbyist side.
I think the dynamics of how the hobby work has changed completely. I think you're absolutely right. In that big boom where everyone and their dog jumps on the bandwagon to try and flog multi-rotor drone racing, just think of all the terrible goggles that were released in those 3 or 4 years. It's like everyone in China grabbed a couple of OLED displays and a couple of lenses and smacked, and put them in a box and charged 400 quid for them. I loads of things that I got was offers I just didn't get in because they were so bad. And we're at the other end of that now, where it feels like the people in the hobby are genuinely in the hobby because they want to be in the hobby, not because they think it's a lucrative way to make loads of money. And so we've seen loads of people disappear. Flynoceros and lots of stores and things have gone, and the people who are left are the people who are passionate, or they have moved. Absolutely right, Steve. I think that's into more lucrative areas where they can get funding from other places, and we may, as a hobby, see the results of that. Right. And I think I personally think that's how DJI managed to knock it out the park with the HD system, even on the version 1 goggles, because they've had a lot of very expensive high-end video systems for inspection and professional filming that they've had forever. Had a lot of background and experience in that. Thousands of pounds for those. Is it Lightbridge? Is that one of the ones they had and things like that? And and all that experience was kind of trickled down into a unit that got sold as a as a hobbyist thing, and we get the benefit of that.
And unfortunately, there's also the political tensions that Trump caused between the US and China, where there was a lot of kind of anti-China sentiment, bordering on Sinophobia that was cultured during that time, which has, caused China to be shut out of government contracts and might have helped slow down the innovation that we saw from DJI and FPV systems.
Also, you got to remember, with Red Cat, they own DJI as well, so there's a little bit of a conflict of interest because they own Fat Shark and DJI. Maybe they DJI. Just, I think so, don't they? With Rotor Riot, they're sponsored with DJI. I mean,
they're sponsored, but they don't own it. Yeah. So it seems a bit expensive to buy Fat Shark just to sort of shut them down, as it were, and try and sell more DJI stuff via their store, though. That's what I thought. There must be something coming. There must be some innovation. But as Lee said, I would have expected a module or goggles with it inbuilt and not having the big thing on the end of your goggles by now. But it feels like Fat Shark's almost disappeared since that sale. I don't recall them bringing anything.
Orca's looking good, but then they're asking for close to 600 quid for their technology, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. See, the thing at the moment is that as soon as you're talking that kind of money, then you're into DJI goggle territory.
Why would you pay that for an analog goggle? I mean, it's a good analog goggle, don't get me wrong, but it's fundamentally the analog goggle you could have bought in 2018, really?
Yeah. I remember I did a video where I put analog HD0/SharkBite and the DJI system on a scale of 1 to 10. And I think what I said was the DJI system is the in terms of the ones I've flown, the best. So that's 10. And then the best FPV experience with the best goggles, the best camera, the best VTX, the best module is probably only going to be about 4. Even it's 460, 640 by 480. It's never going to be the same. And it's just I know a lot of my friends who've tried it, and I'm not a fan of DJI. I've been on record of saying that I don't think as a company I don't like the way they operate. But in terms of the HD system, it's kind of become the gold standard now. And I can't believe that 2.5 years later we haven't got a serious competitor.
I will say, if you fly under trees, I can fly a situation where DJI sucks. I can fly through branches, and HD0 will show me those branches. If I've got bad lighting and I've got close branches, DJI is going to mangle that and just give me blocks. So it's not perfect. Sorry for interrupting you there, Painless.
No, I think you're right. And that's the thing, that no system is. The DJI system suits the way I fly, because I don't do the flying through the trees and the branches stuff. I like to go in the middle of nowhere and basically fly, get at altitude, 400 feet and just fly around and have a look. And for that, it is hard to beat. Because even when I'm doing stuff in the fields and I'm flying through some of the trees at low level, you're absolutely right. With the DJI system, you have that momentary pixelization stuff. You get kind of that hitting, but you kind of hope that you don't ever lose it completely. But it just, I just want an alternative. I want an alternative. I'd love an alternative that will fit lots of other goggles. They don't have to buy a complete new goggle system for the barrier. The point of entry is a lot lower, because at the moment, even the version 2 goggles are 500 quid. The air units are 100 odd quid each. For lots of pilots, 600-700 quid's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you can easily spend that on an analog system if you go in top drawer. Your HDO2s, your rapid fire, and all that stuff. You can easily put a hole in that same amount of money.
It does add up when you start adding rapid fires or the TBS Fusion, which are kind of the gold standard.
Yeah,
that's an extra £100 on those goggles right away. £100 on whatever you were going to put on your face. People are mentioning OpenHD here, and I think that does feel like it's the way that we need to go. And I've been using Express LRS a while to have seen the kind of teething problems that systems like this have. And Express LRS, because they've got a very simple design, believe it or not, like there's not a lot of chips there, there's not a lot of software. They iterated quite fast through that. But it was a real pain, and I've been there with my ST Link doing flashing for that system. And it was laborious, and it's not friendly to newcomers. And I think OpenHD is still back there in it's a tinker toy for geeks, and it needs to get past that. It needs to find not just, hey, you can buy this dev board and run it. It needs to get funding to build a board that's just for OpenHD, to put it in a 30 by 30 form factor and sell it to the masses. Coming.
I talked to the guys involved. There's a Patreon which is separate from OpenHD to try and develop a board that would do this, and I talked to them a couple of months ago to see where they were and see if I could talk to them about it at some point. And I said, wait though, because I want to see if I can fly it on a quad first to see where I am. And their intention is to get it to the point where they can get somewhere between 40 and 60 milliseconds of latency and basically get it down to a flight controller board. And that's the thing that's going to go on your quad. And they seem to have been getting towards that when I last spoke to them. So one of the things I want to do is get in touch with them again and say, let's see where you got to, and sort of talk through it and see where we are. Because that would be quite nice. I mean, it is still a pain. And the reason I bang on about HD so often is A, because it's interesting. And I do like to tinker. And this is, as I said in a couple of my videos, it kind of felt like the first time I did FPV, there was a real like, is it going to make it? Is it going to just explode? Which is a fun thing, but that's how all things start. They all start off a bit clunky and a bit bad. But right now it's like, okay, well we can get HD video down, and we've already got the OSD stuff going on, and it talks to flight controllers. That's quite good. We just need to shrink it down, not have it running in Linux, or it can run in Linux. You just don't want to have to SSH to your flight controller to start doing things. Yeah,
Linux is great when you don't know it's running.
Yeah, you just want like a couple of clicks to set stuff up. So the reason I like tinkering with it is it's something I see potential in. I see it could get there. But to be fair, it developed from something else called Open Wi-Fi Broadcast, which was several years back, and that didn't catch on.
Easy Wi-Fi Broadcast.
It was Easy Wi-Fi. It's one of the ones, and that had the similar sort of thing. Yeah, and so OpenHD, I think, is getting a little bit more attention. So we're hopeful. But yeah, as Caroline said, and as you guys have all said, it needs something. It needs a small little integrated circuit which essentially can encode video and send it, because that's what's taking time. And when you run this on a Pi 0, which is already running a full operating system and doing umpteen tasks in the background, and you say, can you just encode this video and send it down the Wi-Fi, there's a delay there, because this isn't, it's not a real-time operating system. There's other stuff going on, and it hasn't got these specialised hardware that literally
FPGAs.
The chips,
I think
just to say you don't want FPGA, because FPGA
red herring
takes a lot of energy to do stuff.
Real-time doesn't necessarily mean faster or better. Real-time just
real-time means deterministic. It means it's going to respond on a known amount of time, whereas
with real-time stuff, variable. It's like you've got an input and then you need an output. With this, you've got like a constant stream of video. So, and when you do real-time, all your drivers and everything have to work with real-time. It's not necessarily. It's not. I mean, it's some situations it is better, but it isn't necessarily a silver bullet, because you can run Linux with a real-time kernel, and it makes everything way more complex. It makes it much harder to use.
There's no doubt about it. It's much more complicated, and I'm not suggesting this should be the way it should go, but by stripping out things that we don't need, like we don't really need it to run an operating system.
It doesn't need to be running Debian. Like, there's people who want to make it work on build root and just have a much smaller, simpler image. And I think that the flashing tools and everything, like one of the reasons that ExpressLRS has done so well is they've got a really amazing side project, which is this configurator software that takes all of that complexity, and you just press a button and the complexity happens, and you watch like thousands of lines of log spew, and it's done. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I was just shown thousands of lines of garbage, but okay, it's working fine. Okay, move on.
But of course, for many people, that looks too complicated, because it's like, what, it builds it? That's complicated. Why doesn't it just have this image that it puts there? That's what they'd like in a sort of friendly thing. So the friendlier, the smaller, the least thinking about OSs or anything we can get, the better.
Yeah, I think you're right, Curry, because the whole point of entry, and this is the issue with it, you know, as an engineer or ex-engineer, I suppose you'd put me as, it's very easy to kind of get to the point where it's all working and then kind of go, okay, we draw a line around that and that's the system. But to really drive the adoption, you've got to drive it down to almost the lowest common denominator. Exactly right, like a board that's ready to go, a configurator, or a single hex file. And then, you know, the kind of people that I'm helping every day on my YouTube channel can kind of buy one from Hobby RC, and they can get it, and it's already got version flashed on it, and if they want to, they can play. And then it becomes, you know, then you drive a whole different level of volume, because, you know, with the Express, going back to Steve's point about the ExpressLRS stuff, you know, I'm playing around with version 2, and interestingly, you know, we talked about your video on flying a fixed wing with it. I've got a video coming about the PWM receivers. The version 2 is a very different animal in the way lots of things work than version 1. And for somebody that kind of plays with it all the time, it's relatively straightforward. But I know that half of my flying buddies, it's as soon as you see lines of code flashing up, like, you know, they think they're in the Matrix, right? You know, and they'll all you know, their minds will just explode. It just, you know, if it just kind of like, and this is where I think DJI are very good, in that, you know, they have to configure, you plug the air unit in, and it goes, oh, there's an air unit. Do you want to activate it? And you go, please, and it goes, right, you're good to go. And that level is the kind of the level that, you know, that give you the broadest amount of customers and ultimately drive the volume for you. But I would love there to be another HD system, and then that would give us This year we'd have ELRS, we'd have Edge TX, and we'd have an Open HD system. That would be the trinity. That would be a whole new level for the hobby. It's the one bit that's missing, I think.
I think we should kind of look around the average home and look at all the gadgets and gubbins we have. Like, I've got a load of Zigbee lights, and I've got hubs that control them, and I've got just gadgets, and I assume a bunch of them probably run Linux, but I've never had to find out. I've never had to approach anything that looked like an interface. I've done most of it using my mobile phone. And when we get to that type of level, I think the DJI stuff is actually not trying hard enough. That it makes you plug into a Windows PC and install a program there. If I had something that I could put on my phone and plug into my phone, or I powered on and then put my phone near it and it recognized it, now you're talking. Now that's ease of use. I don't need to sit down with a laptop. I could be out in a field and be like, oh yeah, I'm just setting up this thing, like you would with, your Philips Hue or your IKEA smart home stuff that you picked up on a whim while you're buying some shelves, and it's just a doddle to set up. And that's the kind of the last boundary that we're not quite getting to. You still need to be carting around a laptop for all of this stuff.
Well, Menace is piping up in the chat.
And I was just going to say, Shady makes also a good point here about I've got mates that have never updated anything, because as soon as you say flash something to somebody, they get really nervous, like I could break it and I don't want to flash it and I'm just going to leave it. That's the problem.
Well, that's if they understand what you mean, and it doesn't mean, get a long coat and do that in front of it. But it is, because I'm a big fan of the school as well, Wayne, of if it works, don't bugger about with it. So a lot of the ELRS stuff that I've been playing with has been on version 1.1 something, and then I had to update it to version 2, and then as Steve can probably attest to, once you do one little bit, you're kind of committed, to do the whole thing, I absolutely get why people go, what, it's good enough, I just want to fly. Because there are people out there who are not interested in all the technology, they just want it to work.
One thing I do like about that project is the way that they've done the software properly from a versioning standpoint. And if it's version 1, it works with everything else version 1, whether it's 1.1, 1.2. If it's version 2, you can flash your radio with version 2, and you could flash another one with version 2.2, and you could flash a model with 2.1, and they're all going to work with each other so long as the main number is the same. That's proper compatibility, and that's quite nice to see.
Yeah, it's like we did a lot of the modern projects that are running, even like the HTX guys. They are using proper discipline these days, and even iNav, with the major revisions, and like that.
Raging Sparrow.
Yeah,
no.
What was that about? Does anyone know the reason why they called it Raging Sparrow?
Did you not catch us?
Oh, you didn't. It was mentioned on here, and jokingly, someone said Raging Sparrow.
And it's stuck. Well, all I can say is it's a good job, Jack, that you're not on that development team, because Lord knows what would it get called with you.
I think we chastised him that the software police were going to get him because he had Red Kite down for 4.0 and Red Kite down for 4.1, and I chivied him like, the software police are going to get you, man, because you're using the same code name for 2 releases.
Did they not
someone
have
came up with Raging Sparrow?
Capitalization or different, or punch or underscore or something. Raging Sparrow, jeez Louise, that is great.
He's not having a good time at the moment. Hackers got onto his AWS
I saw a bunch
server.
of spam. That was my distracted expression a while ago. Someone did the whole get your free nitro thing, which Discord seems to suffer from. It's free from most spam, but every now and then it just gets smacked about some spam.
Yeah. Speaking of spam and those things, Curry, have you had any of those people coming on your channel and pretending to be you and answering comments?
No. Although I did see your video about it, and certainly people using your logo and sort of saying, "Oh, call me here and I'll get you a prize." It would be quite nice if they answered the questions and sort of useful
would
bots that
save me
could
a
answer the
ton of
questions
time.
correctly.
But it's interesting because Nerks had it. Loads of us have had it. It's just I'll mention it on here for those who are listening. So there is a thing going on. One of the latest scam things on YouTube, because they're always trying to separate you from your money or your identity or both, is people are pretending to be the channel that you're on, and particularly on things like prize draws, are replying to you, and because the icon looks the same as the channel that you're on, it might look like it's the person that owns the channel. It's invariably not, because the name's different. It's usually like a WhatsApp number is the actual name. I posted about this. There was two very odd, diametrically different sets of reaction. Usually you get a whole spectrum, but there was loads of people who were going, God, I can't believe anyone would fall for that. And then the other end of the spectrum, which was, well, I actually did call that person and they didn't get back to me. So, because people are very trusting, and particularly on channels like ours, where we try and keep the idiot element down as much as we can with the spammers and the porn links and God knows what else. It was just a little bit of a distraction a couple of weekends ago. So just a shout out, if you're watching places in YouTube and Facebook and stuff, and somebody is trying to talk to you and you think it is a content creator that you follow or you're commenting on, but it isn't their channel name, let the owner of the channel know, because it's probably not going to be them, particularly if they're asking you to send an email or send details or ring a phone number.
Ask them about the benefits of left-hand versus right-hand circular polarized antennas, just to see.
Yeah, or ask them about flashing edge TX. Let's see. Let's get some of that out of the way.
I tell you what, I have got in the last. I mean, it's happened just before Christmas. There seem to be explosions of spam from Czech domains, something.cz, every time, and it's always the same sort of scam, and you can spot it a mile away. Somebody will say, oh, I've watched your channel, I am a representative for insert huge conglomerate here, like I work for Nike, we would like you to review and it's like bad English, as
not an
African
Prince.
Really,
usually it's
really crappy Prince. Email, and
thanks,
as soon as you'd reply, not they would reply, what you generally get is an executable file coming over that says, this is our catalogue, run it, and then choose what you want from the catalogue, which is obviously don't run executable files.
I usually reply and ask them which version of wine I should use.
Just don't. Well, it's just bots doing it, and it's automatically reply stuff, and it's just, again, just to warn anybody that might run a smaller YouTube channel like mine and suddenly gets these emails from people saying they are people. Just don't ever run any XCs.
And I got one of them like, oh, can you run this? And I'm like, wait a minute, yes, I'm running it. It's not doing anything. And they're like, can you open registry? I'm like, wait a minute, I need to install that. Hang on. And they're like, what? You need to install? Yeah, I'm just, okay, I've created a new prefix and running registry. What is it you want me to do? Okay.
Jack, you are getting more dangerous with those sparklers every time. I'm surprised you still have eyebrows, brother.
I have.
Never mind eyebrows. What about that? The luscious locks.
It grows back.
It's called a haircut.
No.
Thanks to Numbskull.
Right.
He's good for another week.
Yep. Speaking of executables, that is all we've got time for. You've been listening to Let's Drone Out. Thank you very much. Massive shout out to all our lovely Patreons and anyone who donated, i.e. Numbskull. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you everyone in the chat. You are awesome. Thank you so much.
Don't forget, we're live on YouTube every Thursday, 8 p.m. GMT or 3 p.m. Eastern Standard. I don't know, wherever else.
What time if you're in Australia?
6 in the morning.
San Francisco.
He's
making it up.
Something. Guys,
thank you, Numbskull.
You've been joined by everyone's favourite curry kitten.
Goodbye.
Everyone's. Oh, he's just unbuttoned.
It's just a whole stripper thing, but it's too late now. We're out of time.
Oh man, yeah. Getting inside and changing up all that RAM.
not anymore. We're SSD'd up. I'm not touching another computer now. But yeah, thank you for having me on, guys. Love to talk to you. And thank you to everyone in the chat. And thanks for tuning in and listening. It's always a pleasure to hang out.
No worries. And remember, if you get any messages from Painless360, that's me being a dick. You've been joined by Belric, Shiny Video Stuff, Stephen.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Painless. Thanks, chat.
And I've been Bright Till I Fly. Thank you, guys. Good night.